A few weeks ago, I had the opportunity to speak with a gentleman who appeared on Naked and Afraid, and we talked about what that challenge was like. Well, if you've ever seen the show, you know that there always are at least two people involved in every challenge. So today we're going to round out that story and talk to the other person that participated. Their episode was called Stalked on the Savannah, and today we're going to talk to Jessie, who is a wilderness educator. She's a nursing student, and she's a survivalist. Welcome to Beyond the Lens, Stories That Unite Us, my interview with Jessie Everett. So, Jessie, tell us, your background is as a wilderness educator. What exactly is that?
Well, I've done all sorts of stuff. I was a wilderness therapy guide with Anasazi Foundation in Arizona, and I've been a sea kayaking guide and experiential educator with Ripple Effect here in Maine, and also worked for the Children of the Earth Foundation, specifically as a survival skills instructor. So kind of been all over the place.
So you had some skills going into this.
Yeah, I felt pretty confident in my hard skills going in, actually. Yeah.
So what made you want to do this challenge?
I mean, honestly, I just think, well, I had other educators that I'd worked with who had been on the show and who had had a good experience, and I just wanted that challenge. And I'm pretty good in life in terms of like going out to try and just do what scares me and seek out what I think is really going to be a true test for myself. And so that's what drew me to the show, but not to be on television. My partner Wes was so excited, and I was like, no, the cameras, no. So, yeah.
So what did you do to prepare yourself for this whole thing?
Well, I did brush up on bow drill a little bit because it had been a couple years since I was working with it professionally in the field. And I intentionally put on about 5 pounds and was just like working on physical conditioning. I tried to research the region we were headed to when we found out about 3 weeks ahead of time that we were headed to El Cerrado. But unlike the Amazon, there's just like a lack of published information, at least in English. And I was like, okay, well, this will be exciting.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah.
So do you guys get to confer on what you're going to bring so you don't bring the same thing, or that's not allowed?
Well, we're kind of trusting the production crew. I brought a few items down to Brazil, and they asked me to bring the bow drill and assured me that Wes would have a blade, essentially. So I trusted in that, but ultimately was sad that I didn't get to bring my own machete because it was a really quality machete and homemade by a friend in North Carolina, and Wes's machete was frankly really crappy, and at one point the blade splintered, and I was like, really, dude, this is the machete you brought? So yeah, but it works out.
So tell everybody, for those that haven't seen the show or don't know, what does a bow drill do?
A bow drill is a fire by friction method, and the spindle and the fireboard are creating this like micro wood dust or punk that eventually heats up and coalesces into a coal that actually burns much hotter than a match or a lighter. And so in that way, it's like this amazing ancestral technology that can actually light even slightly wet tinder in a way that a lighter or a match wouldn't be able to. So I just think it's like the most incredible technology to work with.
Wow. So you're on the truck ride going in. What's going through your mind?
Oh, like dread, actually. And it was like the first time that the camera was like right there about 3 feet from my face, and they weren't always that close throughout the duration, but it was kind of a moment of what have I gotten myself into? Like, can I just relax? Or I felt like I was like becoming aware of what my facial expressions were. And it was, I couldn't just totally be inward. That feeling of this being a little bit of a performance was like setting in.
Mm-hmm.
It eventually faded as we forgot about the cameras, but they were a bigger part of our experience than I had been expecting.
So then what would you say is the worst thing you had to deal with in this whole?
Everyone asks me that, and no one asks me what was the best thing, because the best thing was that we got to spend 3 weeks in this incredible place that I don't think I would have ever gotten to go. Other words, it was just like such a privilege and a blessing. But I think the obvious answer is the scorpion bite was just really painful, and I wouldn't want to repeat that. But also, if that's the price I have to pay to spend 3 weeks there, I would pay it again.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
saying a lot. So then what do you think was the hardest thing physically and mentally?
Well, physically, absolutely the hardest thing was sleep deprivation. I learned that fasting was not as hard as I thought it would be. But for whatever reason, I struggled even more so than Wes, and from what I've heard other participants, in terms of being able to sleep well at night. And I was just constantly waking up to tend the fire, or if it became gusty and the wind would come through and wake me up, I just started to unravel in the middle, and then kind of like overcame that and learned how to sleep a little bit better. But
it seemed like at that point when you finally did get some sleep, you also had a little bit more in your stomach. Do you think that made a difference, or do you think not necessarily?
not necessarily. I think we ate so little, I would almost call it like homeopathic eating. Like we were eating more for the vitamins and minerals and less for caloric value.
Mm-hmm.
And we did find something every day that doesn't necessarily make the cut, but always finding like wild tomatoes and different fruits and like random food sources like fish eggs. Wes was actually really great at finding fruits. He would like go on these walks and just like pick them out of the dense shrubbery and come back with these little yellow fruits. So, but then mentally, I honestly think the hardest thing was like this ego journey I was on, in terms of coming to terms with the fact that I was going to be on television, that this experience wasn't just for me, that it was going to be projected back to me on the screen in this way that would be like chopped up. And I wasn't sure they were going to tell the story that I was wanting to tell, and just coming to a place of acceptance that regardless of whether I'm on television or not, just people are always going to interpret my actions. And that's not necessarily a reflection of my truth, and that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
And just coming to terms with like, just kind of like, it was a little bit of an ego death, honestly. It was, but it was challenging. It was very challenging.
Mm. So let's talk a little bit about Wes, and tell us a little bit about him, and what strengths do you think that you had versus the strengths that he had, and how did they complement each other?
Well, Wes is definitely coming in with like this really positive mindset and attitude, and I feel like he really kept us afloat in that way. He wasn't always an optimist, but he never went to like a negative or down place emotionally, and I felt like he really kept us afloat. Sometimes he would be a little bit pessimistic, like on a longer walk, like, oh my God, we're not, we're not there yet, but he just never, he just has like this ability to stay up that was really important to our partnership. And then I felt like I was coming in with a lot of the hard skills and the plant knowledge and the fire knowledge and just some strategic thinking that we needed.
Mm. So do you think that the strength that you walked in with is the same one that you walked out with?
Um, well, I think what I walked out with was a greater sense of feeling safe in my own vulnerability. And actually, that's some of the feedback that I've gotten from women watching the show that's been really meaningful to me, is just that they saw that I allowed myself to be vulnerable. And, you know, it was hard to do to get away from the cameras, but I just really didn't hold back in terms of allowing myself to process my emotions publicly and have those cathartic moments that were really helpful for me. And just learning that okay, and that actually was like helpful and inspiring for other people to see was really a strength that I walked away with.
Yeah. I think that's something that men don't men misinterpret about women sometimes, is that when we get emotional, sometimes it's really just a like a steam valve, and it just
Yes,
needs to come out and we're good. You know, we're not having any kind of a breakdown. It's just we just need to release a little steam and now we're good.
absolutely. I feel like there's such a difference between cathartic, productive crying and what I call the pity cry. And I only had really one pity cry, and that was after the scorpion bite, where I was just like, man, this is tough. Like, I'm just feeling like it's coming at me from all sides. And that clip was actually taken out of context. They showed that clip a little later, not directly connected with my um, scorpion bite, that to me made it look like I was having more of an emotional breakdown than I really was having. And that was
I would have had an emotional breakdown. If I was bit by a scorpion, I can guarantee you I would have had an emotional breakdown.
yeah. Well, and actually, I think what I got to was a bite with their pinchers and not a sting, because it didn't. My hand didn't blow up in the way that a sting would have apparently made it blow up. So the medic actually said, "I don't think this is a scorpion. Your hand would be blowing up more than we're seeing right now." And Wes and I were like, "No, we saw it. We saw the little guy."
So with all of that, you got the brunt of the bees. It seemed you got stung in the eye, you got stung in the lip, you got had this tangle with the scorpion, and still you managed to go forward and go after this hive of bees to get some honey. Talk to me a little bit about that strength and that mindset and what that was all about.
Okay, well, I've had to say this about 100 times, but truly it did not look as badass as people think it was, because they were not North American stinging bees of the type that would give you that like anaphylactic antihistamine type reaction. They were biting bees and they definitely hurt. But they just weren't, it just wasn't of the same quality. I don't think I would have gone after a hive of like the North American bees we have in Maine. Just no way, not at that point. But you know, I just kind of felt like I was out there, and when else would I get to try this, smoking out a hive? I've never done that before. And of course, the sugar was a motivator, absolutely. You know, we were hungry, and it really felt worth it. But I was out there to test myself and to try things I'd never done before, and I wasn't going to let that opportunity go.
Yeah. So you make it through, you see the Jeep, and you get in the Jeep at the end. What does that feel like, and what were you experiencing at that point?
Oh, I was just so like physically relieved. those last couple of days of extraction, I just was really feeling like my muscles starting to break down, and was just thinking about the water and the food and the shower and the warm clothes. It was just like this immense sense of like physical relief. And I wasn't really even processing at that point what it meant to have completed that challenge. Just relief.
So talk to me a little bit about that too. What does this challenge do to your body?
Well, actually, it was interesting. I've been learning about this actually in nursing school right now in terms of what the body does in starvation and the sort of ketoacidosis process that you go to as you start burning fats. And it was actually really interesting because I felt like my hunger was really controlled and I wasn't getting those like sugar highs and crashes that we normally get when we're eating a lot of sugar or simple carbohydrate, and actually felt really strong until my body started breaking down more. And since then have become interested in intermittent fasting and just what does it look like to eat in a shorter window during the day so the digestion can rest and the insulin levels can drop, and so we can be using those fat stores. And it's actually totally changed my relationship with eating and with food. Yeah.
Interesting. So what would you say after being out where there's nothing and no communication and you're sleeping outside and all, what was the hardest part about re-entry, I'm going to say, into everyday life?
Well, actually, it was hard to sleep when I got home. I'd been dreaming of my bed every night when we would like bed down in the sand in our little hut. And then I got to my bed and I just felt like really thrown off by the light pollution in our neighborhood, the lack of natural sound. I ended up getting out of bed that first night and opening the window so I could hear the nighttime sounds. And I felt like kind of like that buzz. Some people say they can feel like a buzz of electricity in the walls. And those first few days after getting back, I really felt like I could feel that, and I just didn't feel as relaxed as I had when we were in Brazil. And I had to like, my nervous system had to readjust to modern living.
That's interesting. I know when I had a separate conversation with Wes, was telling me that one night he had to go and sleep outside because that felt normal to him.
Absolutely. I think it's a nervous system thing. We just habituate to that level of stimulus.
So what would you say, what part of your body took the longest to recover, would you say?
Oh, absolutely my womb. I didn't bleed for months afterward, and it was a really tough recovery, having lost over 20 pounds. And I just felt that my whole endocrine system, hormonally, I just felt a little bit like I was on a roller coaster as my body recovered. And it was really emotionally challenging, actually, to just bring myself back to a place of stability. And it was really interesting. I got some feedback from people when I first got back, when I was still really thin. People were saying, "Oh my God, Jess, you look great." And I'm thinking, no, this is a body in starvation. Like, how dare you affirm this for women, that this is where we're supposed to be, because this is not a healthy body. And it was just another reminder of kind of those patriarchal expectations that are put on women's bodies that are unhealthy.
What would you say didn't make it on television that you wish we had seen or wish we knew about this whole experience?
My gosh, so much. I really think that they could make like a whole series out of that time out there. And I tried really hard, because they were often asking me to narrate what I was doing, to narrate in a way that I felt like would educate viewers. Like, this is a mint, and I know it's mint because X, Y, and Z. I've never met this Brazilian mint before, but like, this is what's going through my mind as a survivalist. And so much of our experience and knowledge is cut out, and even just our motivations and personalities as people were simplified. um, Wes, he was just talking every day about how much he loves his family and his wife, just gushing about his wife every day, the cutest thing ever. And I just couldn't believe that they didn't put that in the episode, because it was so endearing. And then for me, I felt flattened, like as a woman and as a person. And I felt like, we kind of talked about this, but my emotional processes around the catharsis and the release of those tears in order to move forward in a strong way, that was all flattened in a way that I wasn't really comfortable with. And so it is hard to see it, and just see how much is left out.
Would you do it again?
I still don't know. The jury is out on that one. I think in order to do it again, I would have to go for 40 days. And I'm not sure if that would be the best thing for my body. However, sometimes in those bigger groups, the survivalists are able to get bigger game and eat more and don't lose quite as much weight. So we'll see. Yeah.
So if you had a few minutes to go back and talk to the woman that started this whole journey, knowing what you know now, what would you say to her?
I honestly don't know if there's anything that I could say to her to prepare for her for what was going to happen. It was just something, because I have spent a lot of time in the wilderness, alone with small groups. I've spent over a month hiking the John Muir Trail. I know what it's like to be out for that long, but I just didn't know what it would be like to be out in such a raw form with so few tools. And it was just something I had to experience for myself and in my body to know what that was really going to feel like. And there's just nothing I could have said.
Well, I thank you for saying everything that you did to us today and sharing your experience. It was amazing to see you go through what you went through, and especially knowing the back side of it a little bit now. I know that when I look at it, I definitely see strength and nothing but strength. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it was great to be able to share my experience with you.
Thank you for joining us today. For other podcast episodes or an interest in working with me, please visit marlenasemenza.com. Join the mailing list or reach out to me to schedule a complimentary call. As a personal brand photographer, I have had the privilege of working with some amazing people to tell their stories, and I'd love to hear yours.